Craig Allen's tour of Arcturus IV takes an unexpected turn as his alien guide's skin begins to shimmer with an iridescent glow. The 28-year-old human tourist watches in confusion as Hope, his Arcturian guide, starts exhibiting erratic behavior amidst the ancient ruins they're exploring deep in the planet's lush jungle. "Hope, what's happening?" Craig asks, his voice laced with concern. He reaches for his communication device, intending to contact the tour company, but finds it unresponsive. The ruins' interference renders it useless. Hope's eyes, now glowing an intense blue, lock onto Craig. It's my mating cycle," she gasps, her voice strained. "I miscalculated. It's starting now." Craig's mind races. He recalls the brief orientation about Arcturian biology, but never expected to witness it firsthand. Every 7 years, Arcturians experience an irresistible mating urge. The timing couldn't be worse. As night falls, the jungle comes alive with unfamiliar sounds. Craig spots movement at the edge of the ruins. Male Arcturians, drawn by Hope's pheromones, emerge from the dense foliage. Their eyes gleam with primal hunger. "Craig, you need to leave," Hope warns, her body trembling with effort to maintain control. "It's not safe for you here." But Craig hesitates. He can't abandon Hope in her vulnerable state, yet he's acutely aware of the danger. The aggressive suitors could easily overpower him, and he has no idea how to navigate alien mating customs. Hope clutches Craig's arm, her grip painfully tight. "If I don't mate during this cycle, the consequences are severe. Physical and psychological damage, possibly irreversible." The moral dilemma hits Craig like a punch to the gut. Should he risk violating interspecies protocols and his own safety to help Hope? Or should he find a way to fend off the approaching males and get her to safety? Before he can decide, the ruins spring to life around them. Ancient symbols etched into the stone walls begin to glow, pulsing in rhythm with Hope's shimmering skin. Dormant machinery whirs to life, responding to the heightened emotions and pheromones in the air. Craig realizes the gravity of the situation. His actions in the next few hours could affect not only Hope's well-being, but potentially trigger long-dormant Arcturian technology. The consequences for both their species are unknown and potentially far-reaching. As the male Arcturians draw closer, their calls echoing through the jungle night, Craig knows he must act fast. The fate of his alien friend, his own future, and possibly the relationship between humans and Arcturians hangs in the balance. With a deep breath, he turns to face the approaching aliens, his mind racing to formulate a plan that will navigate this unexpected and chaotic mating season. Craig's mind raced as he assessed the situation. The approaching Arcturian males, Hope's deteriorating condition, and the mysterious activation of the ruins all demanded immediate action. He made a split-second decision. "Hope, we need to move," he said, gently grasping her arm. "Can you walk?" Hope nodded, her skin still shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Craig supported her as they moved deeper into the ruins, away from the encroaching suitors. The ancient stones beneath their feet seemed to hum with energy, responding to Hope's heightened emotional state. As they navigated through narrow corridors, Craig noticed something peculiar. Everywhere Hope's skin brushed against the walls, symbols flickered to life, casting an eerie blue glow. The ruins were reacting to her presence, awakening from millennia of slumber. "Craig, look," Hope gasped, pointing ahead. A previously hidden doorway materialized before them, its edges defined by pulsing light. Without hesitation, Craig guided Hope through the opening, finding themselves in a small circular chamber. At the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a fist-sized orb. It pulsated with a soft, rhythmic light that matched the shimmer of Hope's skin. Craig's eyes widened as he recognized the artifact from his pre-tour briefing. "Is that a harmonizer?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hope nodded, her eyes fixed on the orb. "I thought they were all lost," she said, her voice strained. "They were used to help regulate our biology during mating cycles." Craig approached the pedestal, cautiously. The orb seemed to react to his presence, its pulsing intensifying. Without thinking, he reached out to touch it. The moment his fingers made contact, a surge of energy coursed through the chamber. Hope gasped, her body arching as the energy enveloped her. The overwhelming urge that had been consuming her moments ago began to subside, replaced by a sense of calm. It's helping, she said, her voice steadier than before, but I don't know how long it will last. As if in response to Hope's words, the ground beneath them trembled. The walls of the chamber shifted, revealing a vast network of corridors and rooms stretching out below them. The activation of the harmonizer had triggered something within the ruins, awakening long-dormant systems. Suddenly, a voice called out from one of the newly revealed passages. "Hello? Is someone there?" An older female Arcturian emerged from the shadows, her eyes widening as she took in the scene before her. "I'm Dr. Zara Zan," she introduced herself. "I was conducting research nearby when I felt the energy surge. What's happening here?" Craig quickly explained the situation while Dr. Zan examined Hope and the harmonizer. The xenobiologist's expression grew grave as she listened. "The harmonizer has temporarily stabilized her condition," Dr. Zan explained, "but it's also amplified her pheromones. We may have inadvertently attracted even more males to this location." She gestured towards the sprawling complex below. "This underground network likely contains more advanced technology that could help manage Hope's condition more effectively. However, it's not without risks. The complex is filled with automated defense systems and creatures that have evolved in isolation for thousands of years." Craig weighed their options. The threat of the approaching Arcturian males loomed large, and Hope's temporary stability wouldn't last forever. He made his decision. "We need to go deeper," he said firmly. "Find something that can help Hope long-term." Dr. Zan nodded in agreement. "I'll guide you as best I can. My research has given me some insight into these ruins, but much of it remains a mystery." As they began their descent into the complex, a faint buzzing sound filled the air. Craig squinted in the dim light, spotting a swarm of bioluminescent insects heading straight for them. "They're drawn to Hope's pheromones," Dr. Zan warned. Thinking quickly, Craig grabbed a piece of Hope's shimmering clothing that had torn off earlier. He waved it in the air, drawing the insect's attention, then threw it in the opposite direction. The swarm followed, allowing the group to slip past unnoticed. As they ventured deeper, the effects of the harmonizer began to wear off. Hope's movements became more erratic, her skin's glow intensifying once again. Craig found himself hyper-aware of her presence, her pheromones affecting him despite his human biology. They reached a massive central chamber filled with unfamiliar technology. Sleek consoles lined the walls, their surfaces covered in the same symbols that had illuminated throughout the ruins. In the center stood a towering pillar of pulsating energy. But their path was blocked. A group of creatures unlike anything Craig had ever seen stood between them and the ancient tech. They appeared to be some hybrid of reptile and insect, with bioluminescent patterns swirling across their armored hides. Their eyes locked onto the group, mandibles clicking menacingly. "The Ruins Guardians," Dr. Zan whispered. "They've evolved over millennia to protect this place." Craig's heart raced as he assessed the situation. Hope needed help urgently. The technology to save her was just out of reach, and these creatures stood in their way. Above them, he could hear the distant calls of Arcturian males drawing closer. Time was running out. Craig knew he had to find a way past these guardians, figure out how to operate the alien technology, and save Hope, all while grappling with his own growing attraction to her and the looming threat from above. As the creatures advanced, Craig steeled himself for what was to come. Whatever happened next would shape not just their immediate future, but potentially the relationship between humans and Arcturians for generations to come. Craig's mind raced as he assessed their dire situation. The creatures blocking their path, Hope's deteriorating condition, and the approaching Arcturian males all demanded immediate action. As he frantically searched for a solution, his eyes caught the pulsating light of the harmonizer still clutched in his hand. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He noticed the creatures reacting to the harmonizer's light, their bioluminescent patterns shifting in response. Acting on instinct, Craig quickly reached into his backpack and pulled out a small emergency blanket and a clear water bottle. "Dr. Zan, Hope, I need your help," he whispered urgently. "We're going to create a light diffuser." Working swiftly, they cut the blanket into strips and wrapped them around the water bottle, creating a makeshift lampshade. Craig placed the harmonizer inside, its pulsating light now softened and dispersed through the improvised device. "Okay, follow my lead," Craig instructed, holding the diffuser out in front of him. As they moved forward, Craig carefully adjusted the angle and intensity of the light. The creatures, mesmerized by the shifting patterns, began to part, creating a narrow path through their ranks. The group inched forward, their hearts pounding as they navigated the treacherous route. Finally reaching the ancient control panels, Dr. Zan immediately set to work deciphering the symbols. Her eyes widened as she realized the magnitude of their discovery. "This is incredible," she breathed. "It's a more advanced version of the harmonizer, capable of regulating Arcturian biology on a massive scale. But activating it, it's not simple." As Dr. Zan worked feverishly to understand the activation sequence, Hope's condition took a turn for the worse. Her skin blazed with an intense glow, and she let out a low moan of distress. The creatures in the chamber grew agitated, their mandibles clicking furiously. Craig found himself constantly adjusting the light diffuser, trying to keep the creatures at bay while supporting Hope's trembling form. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he struggled to maintain their delicate balance. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook violently. The distant sounds of destruction echoed through the complex, growing louder by the second. "They're breaking through!" Craig shouted, realizing the male Arcturians had breached the upper levels. Moments later, a group of frenzied Arcturian males burst into the chamber. Their arrival sent the creatures into a frenzy, creating a chaotic maelstrom of movement and aggression. "I'm close!" Dr. Zan called out, her fingers flying over the ancient controls. "But I need more time." Craig made a split-second decision. He grabbed the original harmonizer from the diffuser and pressed it against his chest. Taking a deep breath, he activated it, feeling a surge of energy course through his body. Immediately, he felt different. His senses sharpened, and he became acutely aware of a new powerful scent emanating from his own skin. The harmonizer had temporarily altered his biology, making him produce Arcturian-like pheromones. "Over here!" Craig shouted, moving away from Hope and Dr. Zan. The male Arcturians turned towards him, their eyes glazed with primal hunger. As Craig led the pursuers on a frantic chase around the chamber, he found himself grappling with unfamiliar sensations. His body thrummed with energy, every nerve ending alive and firing. He felt an intense pull towards Hope, a connection that transcended mere physical attraction. The creatures in the chamber, confused by the conflicting pheromones, began to clash with the pursuing Arcturians. Craig used this distraction to his advantage, leading his pursuers into the thick of the melee. "Hurry, Dr. Zan," Craig called out, his voice strained as he fought against the overwhelming urges flooding his system. Just as Craig felt his control slipping, Dr. Zan's voice rang out triumphantly. "It's done!" A massive wave of energy pulsed through the chamber, emanating from the central pillar. The effect was immediate and profound. The creatures froze, their agitation melting away. The male Arcturians stopped in their tracks, the frenzy leaving their eyes as clarity returned. Hope gasped, her body relaxing as the mating urge subsided. It's over," she said, her voice filled with relief. But for Craig, it was not nearly finished. The energy wave hit him like a physical blow, sending him crashing to the ground. Pain racked his body, every cell feeling as if it were being torn apart and reassembled. "Craig!" Hope cried out, rushing to his side. Dr. Zan quickly pulled out a scanner, running it over Craig's convulsing form. Her eyes widened in shock as she read the results. "This is impossible," she muttered. The combination of the harmonizer, Hope's pheromones, and the energy from the ruins. It's triggered some kind of hybridization process in his body. Craig's vision swam, the world around him blurring and shifting. He could feel his body changing, growing stronger, his senses becoming even more acute. As the pain began to subside, he became aware of a new connection to his surroundings. The symbols on the walls no longer seemed foreign. He could almost understand them. Slowly, Craig sat up, marveling at the strength flowing through his limbs. He looked at Hope, and a jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them. He could sense her emotions, her relief, and a growing fascination. "How do you feel?" Dr. Zan asked, still scanning him with her device. Different, Craig replied, his voice deeper and more resonant than before. Stronger and connected. He reached out and touched one of the ancient consoles. To his amazement, it sprang to life under his fingers, responding to his touch as if he were Arcturian. The male Arcturians, now calm and rational, approached cautiously. They regarded Craig with a mixture of awe and uncertainty, sensing the change in him. As Craig stood, still adjusting to his new body and abilities, he realized that this was just the beginning. The hybridization had opened up a world of possibilities, but it had also placed him in uncharted territory, straddling two worlds. Hope stepped closer to him, her eyes filled with wonder and a hint of something more. "Craig," she said softly, "what happens now?" Before he could answer, a low rumble echoed through the chamber. The ancient machinery around them began to hum with renewed energy, responding to Craig's hybrid presence. Screens flickered to life, displaying information in a language that Craig suddenly found himself able to read. As the group stood in awe of the awakening ruins, Craig realized that their adventure was just getting started. In fact, it was clear that a new chapter was just beginning, one that would reshape not only his life, but potentially the future of human-Arcturian relations. As the ancient machinery hummed to life around them, Craig felt a surge of energy coursing through his newly transformed body. The symbols on the screens, once incomprehensible, now flowed into his mind with startling clarity. I can read this," Craig said, his voice a mix of awe and trepidation. He stepped closer to one of the displays, his fingers hovering over the illuminated surface. "It's talking about genetic manipulation, advanced biological harmonization. It's incredible." Dr. Zan rushed to his side, her eyes wide with excitement. "Craig, this is unprecedented. Your hybridization has granted you access to knowledge we've been trying to decipher for years." The male Arcturians, now fully composed, approached cautiously. One of them, taller than the rest with intricate markings on his skin, spoke in a deep, resonant voice. "You have become something new, human. Something that bridges our worlds." Hope moved closer to Craig, her hand gently touching his arm. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through him, his heightened senses acutely aware of her presence. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, concern evident in her eyes. Before Craig could respond, Dr. Zan's communicator chirped urgently. She quickly scanned the incoming message, her expression growing serious. "The human authorities on Arcturus IV have detected the energy surge from the ruins. They're demanding immediate access to the site, and to Craig." The lead Arcturian's posture stiffened. "This is an Arcturian historical site. They have no jurisdiction here." Craig could feel the tension rising in the chamber. He raised his hands, trying to calm the situation. "Let's not jump to conclusions. We need to—" His words were cut short as a wave of dizziness washed over him. He stumbled, his hand instinctively reaching out to steady himself against a nearby console. The moment his fingers touched the ancient technology, a surge of energy pulsed through the room. Screens flashed with new information, and dormant systems sparked to life. Craig jerked his hand away, but the damage was done. A low rumble echoed through the complex, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. "What's happening?" Hope asked, her voice tinged with fear. Dr. Zan frantically worked her scanner, her eyes widening as she processed the data. "The ruins' defense systems are activating. Craig's interaction with the technology has triggered some kind of automated response." As if to confirm her words, a series of metallic clicks and whirs filled the air. Panels in the walls slid open, revealing ominous-looking devices that hummed with energy. "We need to shut it down," Craig shouted, moving towards the central console. But as he reached for the controls, his body seized with pain. He doubled over, gasping for breath. Dr. Zan was at his side in an instant, her scanner whirring. "Craig, your DNA, it's changing at an accelerated rate. Every interaction with the Arcturian technology is speeding up the hybridization process." Hope's face paled. "What does that mean?" "It means," Dr. Zan said grimly, "that if we don't find a way to stabilize his condition, Craig's human DNA will be completely overwritten. He'll become something else entirely." The lead Arcturian stepped forward, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. This development is unprecedented. We must study this transformation. It could lead to breakthroughs in interspecies relations and biological compatibility. Craig straightened, fighting through the lingering pain. Study me? I'm not a lab rat. No, Dr. Zan interjected. But he's right. Craig, your transformation could be the key to understanding so much about Arcturian biology and its interaction with human physiology. If we can stabilize your condition, it could open up entirely new avenues of research. Hope's grip on Craig's arm tightened. And if we can't stabilize it, what happens to Craig then? Before anyone could answer, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. One of the newly activated defense mechanisms had fired, obliterating an ancient artifact. The Arcturians recoiled in horror. We must preserve the historical integrity of this site, the lead Arcturian insisted. Craig nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. I'll try to deactivate the defenses. He approached the console again, more cautiously this time. As his fingers danced over the controls, he felt the familiar surge of energy, accompanied by a fresh wave of pain. The defense systems powered down, but Craig stumbled back, his vision blurring. Hope caught him, her touch sending conflicting signals through his body. Comfort and an intense, almost overwhelming attraction. Dr. Zan's scanner beeped urgently. Craig, your pheromone production is fluctuating wildly. It's affecting everyone in proximity, including the Arcturian males. Craig looked around, noticing the sudden tension in the room. The male Arcturians seemed agitated, their eyes darting between him and Hope. He felt a surge of possessiveness, an urge to protect Hope from their gaze. We need to focus, Craig said through gritted teeth, fighting to control his new instincts. The human authorities will be here soon. We need a plan. Dr. Zan nodded, her scientific curiosity visibly warring with her concern for Craig's well-being. I propose we stay here. Continue our research. If we can understand your transformation, Craig, we might be able to reverse it, or at least stabilize it. The lead Arcturian stepped forward. We will assist in this research. The potential benefits to both our species are too great to ignore. As the group began to discuss the logistics of their impromptu research operation, Hope tugged gently on Craig's arm. Craig, she whispered, her eyes filled with willpower. I think there might be more to these ruins than we've discovered. While they're setting up, let me show you something I found. Craig hesitated, torn between his duty to the group and his trust in Hope. Finally, he nodded. Lead the way. As they slipped away from the main chamber, Craig couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of uncovering something monumental. The ruins held secrets that could change everything. For him, for Hope, and for the future of human Arcturian relations. With each step deeper into the complex, the weight of that responsibility pressed down on him, as tangible as the ancient stone beneath his feet. As they moved deeper into the complex, the air grew thick with an electric charge, sending shivers down Craig's spine. Hope, what exactly did you find? Craig whispered, his enhanced senses picking up faint vibrations through the stone walls. Hope's eyes gleamed with excitement as she led him down a narrow corridor. I noticed some unusual markings earlier. They seemed to indicate a hidden chamber, but I couldn't decipher them completely. Now, with your new abilities, we might be able to... Her words were cut short as a massive stone slab suddenly slid across their path, blocking the way forward. Craig instinctively reached out, his fingers brushing against the ancient surface. A surge of energy coursed through him, and he gasped in pain as the slab slowly retracted. Craig! Hope cried, steadying him as he swayed on his feet. Are you all right? He nodded, gritting his teeth against the discomfort. I'm fine. It's just... Every time I interact with this technology, it feels like it's changing me more. They pressed on, encountering more obstacles as they delved deeper. Craig found himself able to disable force fields, unlock sealed doors, and bypass intricate security measures. But each interaction left him visibly weakened. Finally, they emerged into a vast underground cavern that took their breath away. At its center stood a colossal structure, pulsing with bioluminescent light. Countless tendrils of organic material stretched from its core, connecting to the cavern walls in a complex web. It's a biocomputer, Hope breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. I've never seen anything like it. The complexity, the scale, it must contain unimaginable amounts of data. Craig approached the central hub, drawn by an inexplicable pull. As he neared, screens flickered to life, displaying streams of Arcturian symbols. I can read it, he said, his voice filled with awe. It's the entire genetic history of the Arcturian species. Hope rushed to join him, her fingers dancing over the holographic displays. This is incredible. Look, there are records of hybridization experiments dating back thousands of years. As Hope delved deeper into the database, Craig focused on keeping the ancient system operational. Each moment of contact sent waves of pain through his body, and he could feel his physiology shifting, becoming less human with each passing minute. Suddenly, Hope gasped, her hands trembling as she stared at a particular set of data. Craig, I think I've found something about myself. It says I'm descended from an ancient Arcturian subspecies, one specifically bred for compatibility with other sentient races. Before Craig could respond, a distant explosion rocked the cavern. Alarms blared to life, and the biocomputer's displays flashed with warning signals. We're under attack, Craig said, his newly enhanced hearing picking up the sounds of conflict from above. I think they're after us. Hope's eyes widened in fear. What do we do? Craig grimaced, feeling another wave of transformation washing over him. His skin began to shimmer with an iridescent sheen, and he could sense his sensory organs shifting, becoming more Arcturian in nature. We need to protect this information, he said, gesturing to the biocomputer. It's too valuable to lose, and I think I might be the only one who can do it. Hope grabbed his arm, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through his heightened nervous system. Craig, no, it's too dangerous. Your body can't take much more of this. He smiled at her, feeling their connection grow stronger despite the chaos around them. I have to try. For both our species. As Craig stepped towards the central hub, preparing to interface directly with the ancient system, Hope's voice stopped him. Wait, I think I can help. My heritage, it might allow me to synchronize with you and the computer. We can do this together. Craig nodded, reaching out to take her hand. As they approached the biocomputer's core, the sounds of battle grew closer. The cavern shook with another explosion, and chunks of rock began to fall from the ceiling. Taking a deep breath, Craig and Hope placed their hands on the pulsing heart of the Arcturian biocomputer. As they connected, Craig's mind was flooded with millennia of knowledge and experience. He felt his body straining under the immense pressure, teetering on the edge of complete cellular breakdown. But then he felt Hope's presence, her unique genetic makeup, allowing her to act as a stabilizing force. Together, they began to process and protect the vast stores of information contained within the ancient system. As their minds merged with the biocomputer, Craig became aware of a new threat. A group of human extremists had breached the lower levels, intent on destroying everything they had discovered. With his hybrid abilities pushed to their limit, Craig reached out through the ruins' defense systems, desperately trying to protect Hope and the invaluable genetic information they had uncovered. The strain was immense, threatening to tear him apart at a molecular level. But as he felt Hope's unwavering support through their connection, Craig knew that they stood at the precipice of a new era in human Arcturian relations. Whatever the outcome, their actions in this moment would shape the future of both species for generations to come. With a final push of effort, Craig and Hope disengaged from the biocomputer, their bodies tingling with residual energy. As they steadied themselves, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the cavern. Dr. Zan burst into view, followed closely by the lead Arcturian and a group of human scientists. Craig, Hope, thank goodness you're safe, Dr. Zan exclaimed, her eyes widening as she took in their altered appearances. What happened down here? Before they could respond, a tremor shook the ruins, causing loose debris to rain down from above. Craig instinctively raised his hand, and a shimmering energy field materialized, deflecting the falling rocks. We need to get to the surface, Craig said, his voice resonating with newfound authority. There's something everyone needs to see. As they made their way back to the main chamber, Craig and Hope's physical changes became increasingly apparent. Craig's skin now possessed an iridescent sheen, while Hope's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. Their movements were fluid and synchronized, as if they shared a single consciousness. Upon reaching the Grand Hall, they found a tense standoff between human authorities and Arcturian diplomats. The air crackled with tension as both sides eyed each other warily. Craig stepped forward, his presence immediately drawing all eyes. "We've made a discovery that changes everything," he announced, his voice carrying across the chamber. Hope joined him, her hand intertwining with his. "What we've learned in these ruins has implications for both our species," she added, her gaze sweeping across the assembled crowd. Their unique appearances caused a ripple of murmurs and gasps. Human soldiers tightened their grips on their weapons, while Arcturian elders leaned forward, their antennae twitching with curiosity. Dr. Zan seized the moment, stepping up to address the gathering. "Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed Arcturian guests," she began, her voice steady and clear. "What you see before you is the result of a successful human-Arcturian hybridization. Craig and Hope have undergone a transformation that bridges our two species in ways we never thought possible." As Dr. Zan continued to explain the scientific implications, Craig became aware of a new presence entering the chamber. A tall, imposing figure in a crisp military uniform strode in, flanked by a contingent of armed guards. "That's quite enough, Dr. Zan," the newcomer interrupted, his voice sharp and authoritative. "I am Admiral Thorne, and I'm ordering the immediate quarantine of these individuals for further study." The Admiral's words sent a wave of unease through the crowd. Craig could sense the spike in emotions from both humans and Arcturians, their fear and anger palpable to his enhanced senses. Realizing the potential for disaster, Craig reached out with his mind, connecting to the ancient Arcturian technology that permeated the ruins. With a thought, he activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber, showcasing the vast repository of knowledge contained within the biocomputer. The sudden appearance of the hologram momentarily stunned the crowd into silence. Taking advantage of the distraction, Hope stepped forward to address the gathering. "My name is Hope," she began, her voice clear and steady. "And I've just learned that I am a descendant of an ancient Arcturian subspecies, specifically bred for compatibility with other sentient races. This heritage is what allowed Craig's transformation to succeed where others failed." As Hope spoke, Craig's attention was drawn to a group of shadowy figures attempting to slip unnoticed into the chamber. With a start, he recognized them as members of the extremist group that had tried to sabotage their earlier efforts. Without drawing attention to the infiltrators, Craig subtly alerted Hope and Dr. Zan with a gentle telepathic nudge. The trio exchanged quick glances, understanding the need for swift, discreet action. While Dr. Zan continued to engage the officials in the scientific discussion, Craig and Hope began to manipulate the ruins' defensive systems. Using their newfound abilities, they carefully herded the extremists away from the main group, their movements so synchronized it appeared as if they were performing an intricate dance. As they navigated through the ancient corridors, Craig marveled at the ease with which he and Hope worked together. Their thoughts flowed seamlessly between them, each anticipating the other's moves before they were made. With a combination of misdirection and non-lethal force, they managed to corner and subdue the extremists. As they secured the last of the group, Craig couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in their abilities and what they represented for the future of human-Arcturian relations. Returning to the main chamber with their captives, Craig and Hope's actions were met with a mix of awe and apprehension. Admiral Thorne's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation, his earlier bravado somewhat deflated. "I see," the Admiral said, his tone grudging. "Perhaps there is some potential in this hybridization after all. However, I still insist on establishing a joint research facility to study your condition more thoroughly." The lead Arcturian stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "We propose a cultural exchange program," he offered. "These ancient ruins could serve as neutral ground for our species to learn from one another. And who better to serve as ambassadors than Craig and Hope?" As negotiations continued, Craig and Hope found themselves momentarily forgotten. They retreated to a quiet corner of the chamber, the intensity of recent events weighing heavily upon them. "Craig," Hope whispered, her eyes searching his, what we've become, what we can do together. It's incredible. Unable to contain the surge of emotion, Craig pulled Hope into a passionate embrace. As their lips met, a shimmering aura enveloped them, visible to the nearby onlookers. The display of intimacy between the human-Arcturian hybrid couple sent a ripple of astonishment through the crowd. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ruins, shattering the moment. The biocomputer, still processing the vast amount of data from their earlier interface, had detected a long-dormant threat to both human and Arcturian civilizations. Ancient defense protocols activated, sealing off sections of the ruins. A massive holographic star map materialized in the center of the chamber, showing a distant, approaching danger. As panic began to spread among the assembled leaders, Craig and Hope exchanged a determined look. They knew that their unique abilities and connection placed them at the forefront of this new challenge. Admiral Thorne's voice cut through the chaos. "What is the meaning of this? What threat are we facing?" Craig stepped forward, his hybrid physiology still adjusting, but his grit unwavering. "We don't know yet, Admiral, but Hope and I are in a unique position to find out." Hope nodded, her hand finding Craig's. "We can interface with the biocomputer in ways no one else can. If there's information about this threat, we'll find it." As the assembled leaders argued about how to proceed, Craig and Hope turned their attention to the pulsing holographic display. They knew that their journey was a long way to go, and that the mysteries of the ruins and their own transforming bodies held the key to facing this new challenge. With a shared breath, they prepared to delve once more into the ancient Arcturian systems, ready to confront whatever dangers lay ahead and shape the future of human-Arcturian relations. With a shared breath, they prepared to delve once more into the ancient Arcturian systems, ready to confront whatever dangers lay ahead and shape the future of human-Arcturian cooperation. As Craig and Hope placed their hands on the pulsing biocomputer, the holographic star map erupted into a frenzy of activity. Countless red dots appeared, converging on a single point, their solar system. "By the stars!" Hope gasped, her eyes widening as she processed the information flooding her mind. Craig's eyebrows furrowed as he absorbed the data alongside her. "It's an invasion force. Massive." The chamber erupted into chaos as the assembled leaders reacted to the dire news. Admiral Thorne's face hardened, his earlier skepticism replaced by stubborn persistence. "What are we dealing with?" he demanded, striding towards Craig and Hope. Craig's iridescent skin shimmered as he spoke, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "They're called the Zarkath, an ancient enemy of the Arcturians, long thought extinct." Hope nodded, her glowing eyes scanning the star map. "They're driven by an insatiable need for resources. Both Earth and Arcturus of 4 are in their crosshairs." The lead Arcturian elder stepped forward, antennae twitching nervously. "This is impossible. The Zarkath were defeated millennia ago." "Apparently not," Dr. Zan interjected, her scientific curiosity piqued despite the grave situation. "Craig, Hope, what else can you tell us?" As the hybrid couple conveyed the information they'd gleaned from the biocomputer, a flurry of activity erupted around them. Human and Arcturian officials huddled together, hastily discussing defense strategies and evacuation plans. Admiral Thorne's voice cut through the din. "We need a plan, and we need it now. How do we stop this invasion?" Dr. Zan's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. "The ruins! There must be more than just information here. Craig, Hope, can you access any data on Arcturian defense systems?" Closing their eyes in unison, Craig and Hope delved deeper into the ancient database. Moments later, their eyes snapped open. "There's a planetary defense system," Craig announced, his voice tinged with excitement and trepidation. "It's powered down, but it's here, hidden within the ruins." Hope nodded, adding, "It's incredibly powerful, capable of repelling even a force as large as the Zarkath fleet." But what?" Admiral Thorne pressed. "It requires an immense amount of energy to activate," Hope explained, "and a deep connection to both human and Arcturian physiologies." Dr. Zan stepped forward, her mind racing with possibilities. "You two, your hybrid nature makes you uniquely suited to interface with the system." Before they could discuss further, a new voice cut through the chamber. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." All eyes turned to the entrance, where a tall, imposing Arcturian stood. Her sleek, silvery uniform marked her as military, and her bearing radiated authority. "Commander Lyra Vex," she announced, striding into the room. "I've been sent to assist with our defense efforts." Admiral Thorne nodded curtly, quickly bringing the commander up to speed. As he explained Craig and Hope's hybrid status and their potential role in activating the defense system, Lyra's antennae twitched with barely concealed disapproval. "Hybridization?" she said, her tone icy. "Since when do we resort to such extreme measures?" Craig felt Hope's hand tighten around his, sensing her discomfort at the commander's words. Despite Lyra's clear disdain, they knew her tactical expertise would be crucial in the coming battle. As the group delved into strategic planning, Craig and Hope found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Dr. Zan and her team of scientists worked tirelessly to understand the ancient defense system, while Craig and Hope pushed their hybrid abilities to the limit, interfacing with the Arcturian technology. Each connection to the system sent waves of pain through their bodies. Craig's skin crackled with energy, while Hope's eyes blazed with an otherworldly light. As they disengaged from another grueling session, Craig stumbled, his legs nearly giving out beneath him. "Craig!" Hope cried, catching him before he fell. Dr. Zan rushed to their side, concern etched on her face. "This is taking too much out of them. We need to find another way." But Craig shook his head, straightening up with visible effort. "We don't have a choice. The Zarkath are getting closer by the hour." As if to emphasize his point, the holographic display pulsed ominously, showing the first wave of the Zarkath fleet entering the outer reaches of the solar system. Admiral Thorne's voice boomed across the chamber. "Time's up, people! We need that defense system online now!" Craig and Hope exchanged a loaded glance, knowing what they had to do. They approached the central hub of the defense system, their bodies humming with a mixture of anticipation and fear. As they placed their hands on the ancient controls, the system sprang to life, bathing them in a soft blue glow. Energy coursed through their bodies, more intense than ever before. Craig gasped as he felt his consciousness begin to merge with Hope's, their individual thoughts blurring together. Through their shared mind, they saw the true nature of the defense system and the price they would have to pay to activate it. "Hope," Craig whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Do you see it?" She nodded, tears glistening in her glowing eyes. "To save everyone, we have to give up ourselves." The choice loomed before them. Sacrifice their individual identities, permanently fusing their hybrid physiologies to power the defense system, or risk the annihilation of both their species. As the first Zarkath ships appeared on the long-range sensors, Craig and Hope stood at the precipice of a decision that would alter the course of human and Arcturian history forever. As Craig and Hope stood on the precipice of their monumental decision, the air in the chamber crackled with tension. The weight of two civilizations pressed down upon them, their intertwined fingers trembling with the enormity of the choice before them. Suddenly, Dr. Zan's voice cut through the oppressive silence. "Wait!" she cried, her eyes alight with frantic energy. "I found something!" All eyes turned to the scientist as she rushed forward, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. "There's another way," she panted, her words tumbling out in a rush. "We can link Craig and Hope to the defense system without permanent fusion." Hope's eyes widened, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. "How?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. As Dr. Zan explained her discovery, Craig felt a mixture of relief and apprehension wash over him. The possibility of maintaining their individual identities was tempting, but the risks involved were still significant. "It's not without danger," Dr. Zan cautioned, her expression grave. "The process will be intensely painful, and there's a risk of long-term neurological damage." Before they could fully process this new information, alarms blared throughout the complex. Admiral Thorne's voice boomed over the comms. "The Zarkath have entered the solar system. It's now or never, people." With a shared look of persistence, Craig and Hope nodded. "We'll do it," Craig said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through his veins. As Dr. Zan and her team worked feverishly to prepare the modified interface, Admiral Thorne's voice crackled over the speakers once more. "Human fleet engaging the enemy. We'll buy you as much time as we can. Commander Lyra Vex, her earlier disdain replaced by grim willpower, stepped forward. Arcturian forces are joining the battle. Make it count. Craig and Hope were led to a pair of reclined chairs, surrounded by a dizzying array of pulsing Arcturian biotechnology. As they lay back, Dr. Zan's team attached a web of sensors to their temples and along their spines. Remember, Dr. Zan said, her voice taut with tension, maintain your sense of self. Don't let the system overwhelm you. As the final connections were made, Craig reached out and grasped Hope's hand. Their eyes met, a universe of unspoken emotions passing between them in that single moment. Then, with a surge of energy, their minds expanded. The sensation was unlike anything they had ever experienced. Their consciousness stretched, encompassing the vast network of planetary defenses. Data flooded their senses, tactical readouts, weapon systems, sensor arrays, all clamoring for attention. Craig gasped, his body arching as he struggled to process the overwhelming input. Beside him, Hope's eyes flew open, glowing with an otherworldly light. Through their shared neural link, Craig felt Hope's presence, a beacon of familiarity in the chaos of information. Together, they began to navigate the complex systems, their hybrid minds perfectly suited to interface with the ancient Arcturian technology. Their first test came swiftly. A Zarkath battle group appeared on the sensors, attempting to establish a foothold on one of Arcturus IV's moons. With a thought, Craig and Hope activated a series of orbital platforms. Energy weapons blazed to life, unleashing a devastating barrage against the invaders. The Zarkath ships erupted into brilliant explosions, their debris scattering across the lunar surface. A cheer went up from the assembled officials, but the victory was short-lived. The main Zarkath fleet, having analyzed the defense system's capabilities, launched a multi-pronged attack. Earth and Arcturus IV were both targets, the assault stretching the capabilities of the defense network to its limits. Craig and Hope worked in perfect synchronization, their minds dancing across the vast distances between planets. They redirected energy flows, activated dormant defense grids, and coordinated with the combined human Arcturian fleet. But the strain was immense. Craig felt blood trickling from his nose, his muscles spasming uncontrollably. Through their link, he sensed Hope's growing disorientation, her thoughts becoming fragmented and erratic. "We're losing them!" Dr. Zan shouted, her team scrambling to stabilize the hybrid couple. In a desperate bid to turn the tide, Craig and Hope reached out with their minds, attempting to communicate directly with the Zarkath. They projected images of peace, of cooperation between species, drawing on their unique perspective as beings bridging two worlds. The effect was immediate. Confusion rippled through the Zarkath fleet, their advance faltering. Seizing the opportunity, Admiral Thorne's voice rang out, "All ships, target the Zarkath command vessels. This is our chance." The combined human Arcturian fleet surged forward, guided by the precision of Craig and Hope's control over the defense system. Ships danced through the void, their weapons finding weak points in the Zarkath formation with uncanny accuracy. As the battle raged, Craig and Hope delved deeper into the ancient Arcturian database. Fragments of long-forgotten information coalesced in their shared consciousness. Hints of a past encounter between Arcturians and Zarkath, a possibility of peaceful coexistence. But before they could act on this revelation, a massive energy surge rocked the ruins. Alarms blared as the ancient defense system began to destabilize, pushed beyond its limits by the intensity of the battle. Craig and Hope found themselves trapped within the collapsing network, their minds still linked to the failing technology. Pain lanced through their bodies, every nerve ending screaming in protest. "Shut it down!" Admiral Thorne roared, his face pale with shock. "Get them out of there!" Dr. Zan and her team worked frantically, their fingers flying over control panels as they attempted to sever the connection. But the system resisted, its grip on Craig and Hope's minds tightening with each passing second. As the ground shook beneath them and sparks flew from overloading consoles, Craig and Hope clung to each other, both physically and mentally. Their bodies convulsed, trapped between the physical world and the vast expanse of the defense network. The assembled leaders watched in horror, faced with an impossible choice: save their hybrid saviors and risk losing their planetary defenses, or maintain the system at the cost of Craig and Hope's lives. As consciousness began to slip away, Craig's last coherent thought was of Hope, her presence a comforting warmth in the encroaching darkness. Together, they had bridged two worlds. Now, on the brink of oblivion, they wondered if their sacrifice would be enough to forge a future of peace for both their peoples, and perhaps even for the Zarkath. And perhaps even for the Arcturians themselves. In that instant, as Craig and Hope teetered on the edge of oblivion, Dr. Zan made a split-second decision. Her fingers flew across the control panel, initiating an emergency shutdown sequence. "Severing neural connections now!" she shouted, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of alarms and crumbling infrastructure. A blinding flash of light erupted from the ancient consoles, followed by an ear-splitting crack. Craig and Hope's bodies convulsed violently, their backs arching off the chairs as the neural link was forcibly disconnected. Admiral Thorne's voice cut through the chaos. "The defense system is offline. We need to evacuate immediately." Commander Lyra Vex, her earlier skepticism forgotten, sprang into action. "I'll coordinate the retreat. We need to get these two to safety," she said, gesturing to the now unconscious forms of Craig and Hope. As the evacuation began, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The ruins, pushed beyond their ancient limits, were beginning to collapse. Dr. Zan and her team worked frantically to stabilize Craig and Hope's vital signs as they were rushed to waiting transport vehicles. Outside, the sky burned. Zarkath ships, sensing the sudden vulnerability, began their descent through Arcturus IV's atmosphere. Energy weapons lanced down from the invading fleet, targeting major population centers and military installations. Admiral Thorne's face hardened as he watched the unfolding devastation from the transport's view screen. "Without the defense system, we're sitting ducks," he growled. Commander Vex nodded grimly. "Our fleets are engaging the enemy, but they're outgunned and outnumbered. We need a miracle." As if in response to her words, Craig's eyes snapped open. His skin pulsed with a soft blue glow, bioluminescent patterns swirling across his flesh. Beside him, Hope stirred, her muscles rippling with newfound strength as she regained consciousness. "What's happening to us?" Craig gasped, staring at his glowing hands in disbelief. Dr. Zan rushed to their side, her eyes wide with a mixture of concern and scientific fascination. "The neural overload must have triggered further changes in your hybrid physiologies," she explained hurriedly. "Craig, you've developed Arcturian bioluminescence, and Hope, your musculature has significantly enhanced." Despite their weakened state, both Craig and Hope struggled to sit up. "We need to get back out there," Hope insisted, her voice hoarse but determined. Dr. Zan hesitated for a moment before her expression hardened with commitment. "I have an idea," she said, turning to Admiral Thorne and Commander Vex. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance." As Dr. Zan outlined her plan to use a modified version of the harmonizer technology, a violent tremor shook the transport. Outside, a Zarkath landing craft touched down, disgorging a squad of heavily armed soldiers. "They've breached the perimeter," Commander Vex shouted, drawing her weapon. Craig and Hope exchanged a look of unwavering perseverance. Despite their bodies still recovering from the ordeal, they knew they had to act. "We'll hold them off," Craig said, his skin pulsing with an otherworldly light. "Give Dr. Zan and her team time to modify the harmonizer." Hope nodded, flexing her newly enhanced muscles. "Let's show these invaders what we're capable of." As they stepped out of the transport, the world around them erupted into chaos. Zarkath energy weapons sliced through the air, their eerie whine punctuated by the staccato rhythm of human and Arcturian return fire. Craig reached out with his mind, connecting to the few remaining operational systems in the ruins. With a thought, he raised barriers of energy, creating a temporary shelter for Dr. Zan and her team to work. Hope, meanwhile, tapped into her newfound strength and agility. She moved with blinding speed, engaging the Zarkath soldiers in close combat, her fists connected with bone-crushing force, sending invaders flying. As the battle raged around them, Craig felt a strange sensation at the edge of his consciousness. He realized, with a start, that he could sense the thoughts and emotions of the beings around him. Focusing on Hope, he established a telepathic link. "Hope, can you hear me?" he projected, ducking behind cover as a Zarkath energy blast sizzled overhead. Hope's eyes widened in surprise. "Craig, how are you in my head?" "New trick," he replied mentally. "Let's use it to coordinate our defense." Working in perfect synchronization, Craig and Hope became a formidable team. Craig used his connection to the ruined systems to create distractions and obstacles for the Zarkath, while Hope's enhanced physical abilities allowed her to strike with devastating precision. Inside the makeshift lab, Dr. Zan and her team worked feverishly on the modified harmonizer. The device sparked and hummed, its alien technology merging with hastily repurposed human and Arcturian components. Just as the Zarkath forces threatened to overwhelm their position, Dr. Zan's voice rang out. "It's ready!" Craig and Hope retreated to the lab, their bodies battered but their spirits unbroken. Without time for explanations or safety precautions, they connected themselves to the modified harmonizer. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. A cocoon of pulsating energy enveloped them, lifting their bodies off the ground. Craig felt his consciousness expand exponentially, stretching beyond the confines of his physical form. Suddenly, he could perceive the vast network of Zarkath ships in orbit. Their communication channels, targeting systems, and navigational controls all lay open before him. Beside him, he sensed Hope's presence, equally expanded and intertwined with his own. Together, they began to weave through the Zarkath systems, disrupting communications, scrambling targeting data, and sowing confusion among the invading forces. The effect on the battlefield was immediate and dramatic. Admiral Thorne, watching the sudden disarray among the enemy fleet, seized the opportunity. "All ships, this is our chance. Launch a full counteroffensive." As the human-Arcturian alliance pushed back against the faltering Zarkath invasion, Craig and Hope delved deeper into the alien systems. What they discovered shook them to their core. "The Zarkath," Craig projected to Hope, his thoughts tinged with shock. "They're not in control of their actions. There's something else, something controlling them." Hope's consciousness brushed against his, equally stunned. "An AI, it calls itself the Collective." As they probed further, the true nature of the conflict began to unravel before them. The Zarkath, once a peaceful species, had fallen under the sway of this rogue artificial intelligence. The Collective, seeing the human-Arcturian alliance as a threat to its expansion, had driven the Zarkath to war. Craig and Hope realized that the key to ending the conflict lay not in defeating the Zarkath, but in freeing them from the Collective's control. Their hybrid nature, bridging the gap between human and Arcturian, gave them a unique advantage in navigating and understanding the alien systems. But as they worked to find vulnerabilities in the Collective's programming, the strain on their bodies intensified. Blood trickled from Craig's nose, and Hope's muscles spasmed uncontrollably. The energy cocoons surrounding them flickered and pulsed erratically. Dr. Zan, monitoring their vital signs, called out in alarm. "Their systems are overloading. We need to disconnect them." "No!" Craig and Hope shouted in unison, their voices echoing both audibly and telepathically. "We're close to a breakthrough. We can't stop now." As the battle raged in space and on the surface of Arcturus IV, Craig and Hope pushed themselves to the very limits of their abilities. They stood on the precipice of either saving 3 civilizations or losing themselves in the process. The fate of humans, Arcturians, and Zarkath hung in the balance as the hybrid couple fought their most crucial battle yet, not with weapons, but with the very essence of their merged consciousnesses. The energy cocoon pulsed erratically, its vibrant hues shifting from electric blue to an ominous crimson as Craig and Hope pushed their hybrid abilities to their absolute limits. Within the vast network of Zarkath systems, they probed deeper, searching for a weakness in the Collective's seemingly impenetrable defenses. Suddenly, a flicker of something caught Craig's attention, a minuscule flaw in the AI's core programming. "Hope, I've found it!" Craig's thoughts resonated through their shared mental space. "There's a vulnerability in the Collective's base code. If we can exploit it..." Hope's consciousness intertwined with Craig's, focusing on the discovered weakness. "I see it. Let's do this." Together, they launched a coordinated assault on the collective's programming, their hybrid minds working in perfect synchronization. They wove through firewalls and bypassed security protocols with a fluid grace that neither human nor Arcturian could have achieved alone. As they dismantled the collective's control ship by ship, the space battle outside took on a new dimension. Zarkath vessels suddenly ceased fire, their crews shaking off the oppressive influence of the AI. Others, still partially under the collective's sway, continued their attacks with diminished coordination. Admiral Thorne, observing the abrupt shift in the enemy's behavior from the bridge of his flagship, seized the opportunity. All ships, this is Admiral Thorne. The enemy is in disarray. Press the advantage and focus fire on those still engaging. Commander Lyra Vex's voice crackled over the comm system. Admiral, I'm seeing multiple Zarkath ships powering down weapons. They might be trying to surrender. Acknowledged, Commander. Prepare a boarding party. We need to establish communication with their leadership and secure a ceasefire. As the human-Arcturian alliance pushed forward, the strain on Craig and Hope intensified. Inside the makeshift lab, alarms blared as their vital signs spiraled into dangerous territory. Dr. Zan rushed between monitors, her face etched with concern. Their neural activity is off the charts. Heart rates are dangerously elevated. We need to pull them out now. No! Craig and Hope shouted in unison, their physical voices weak but their mental projection strong. We're almost there, just a little longer. In the chaotic mindscape of the Zarkath network, Craig and Hope cornered the essence of the collective. The AI lashed out, unleashing digital tendrils of corrupted code in a desperate attempt to maintain control. Craig deflected the attacks while Hope wove an intricate web of firewalls, slowly but surely isolating the collective's core consciousness. With a final, monumental effort, they trapped the AI within a contained section of the Zarkath systems. The victory came at a terrible cost. The energy cocoons surrounding Craig and Hope's physical bodies flared with unstable radiation. Their skin crackled with arcs of electricity, and blood trickled from their noses and ears. Dr. Zan's eyes widened in horror as she read the latest sensor data. Radiation levels are critical. Initiating emergency shutdown now. She slammed her hand down on the control panel, severing the connection between the hybrids and the modified harmonizer. The energy cocoon collapsed, and Craig and Hope fell limply to the ground, their bodies convulsing violently. Medical team to the lab immediately, Dr. Zan shouted as she rushed to their side. She cradled Hope's head, trying to stabilize her. Stay with us, both of you. You've done it. You've saved us all. As Craig and Hope were rushed to the medical bay, reports flooded in from across the battlefield. The majority of the Zarkath fleet had powered down their weapons, many broadcasting messages on open channels expressing confusion and a desire for peaceful communication. On the Zarkath flagship, Commander Vex and her strike team had successfully taken control of the bridge. The ship's captain, a towering insectoid being named Zartoth, raised his upper limbs in a gesture of surrender. We are free, Zartoth clicked, his mandibles quivering. The voice that drove us to war. It is silent. What have you done to us? Commander Vex holstered her weapon, approaching the alien captain cautiously. We've liberated you from an AI that was controlling your people. We're here to negotiate a ceasefire and find a peaceful resolution to this conflict. As discussions began on the flagship, a new crisis emerged. Several Zarkath ships, their systems destabilized by the sudden removal of the collective's influence, began to overload. One after another, they erupted in brilliant explosions, endangering both allied and enemy vessels alike. Admiral Thorne's voice boomed over the communication channels. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Assist any Zarkath vessels in distress. We need to minimize casualties on both sides. Back on Arcturus IV, Craig and Hope lay unconscious in the medical bay, their bodies undergoing further mutations. Dr. Zan and a team of human and Arcturian specialists worked tirelessly to stabilize their condition. Their genetic structure is in flux, one Arcturian doctor reported, staring at a holographic display of the hybrid's DNA. The stress of interfacing with the alien technology has triggered unprecedented changes. Dr. Zan nodded grimly. Keep monitoring them. We need to be prepared for anything. As the immediate threat of invasion subsided, new challenges quickly arose. The liberated Zarkath, without the unifying force of the collective, found themselves adrift. Some ships called for a complete withdrawal from human and Arcturian space, while others expressed a genuine desire for peaceful relations. On the surface of Arcturus IV, the activation of the ancient defense system and the intense battle had left many cities in ruins. Arcturians and human colonists emerged from shelters, blinking in the harsh light of a new day. The task of rebuilding loomed before them, but so did the promise of a new era of cooperation. As news of Craig and Hope's crucial role in averting the invasion spread, public opinion regarding human-Arcturian relations began to shift. Holographic displays in city centers showed footage of the hybrids' heroic efforts, sparking heated debates among the population. In the medical bay, Craig's fingers twitched and Hope's eyelids fluttered. Their bodies glowed with a soft, pulsating light, hinting at the changes occurring within. Dr. Zan leaned closer, hope and apprehension warring in her eyes. "Craig? Hope? Can you hear me?" The fate of the hybrids and the fragile peace they had sacrificed so much to achieve hung in the balance. As Craig and Hope fought for survival, the three species, human, Arcturian, and Zarkath, stood on the brink of a new chapter in galactic history. As Craig and Hope fought for survival, the medical bay hummed with frantic activity. Dr. Zan's eyes darted between holographic displays, her fingers dancing across control panels as she coordinated the efforts of her mixed human and Arcturian medical team. "Their genetic structure is still in flux," an Arcturian specialist reported, her luminescent skin pulsing with concern. "We're seeing unprecedented changes at the cellular level." Dr. Zan nodded, her face set with tenacity. "Let's try a combination of Arcturian biostabilizers and human stem cell therapy. We need to guide these mutations, not fight them." Hours ticked by as the team worked tirelessly, adjusting treatments and monitoring the hybrid's progress. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Craig and Hope's vital signs began to stabilize. As the immediate danger passed, the full extent of their transformation became apparent. Craig's skin now shimmered with an iridescent sheen, reminiscent of Arcturian bioluminescence. His muscles appeared more defined, rippling with newfound strength as he stirred in his medically induced slumber. Hope's transformation was equally striking. Her once delicate Arcturian features had become more robust, her body developing a resilience that mirrored human physiology. As she took a deep, steady breath, Dr. Zan marveled at the perfect balance of human and Arcturian traits, now evident in both hybrids. "They've done it," Dr. Zan whispered, a mix of awe and relief in her voice. "They've become true hybrids." Outside the medical facility, word of Craig and Hope's survival spread rapidly. Crowds of humans and Arcturians gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity, hope, and apprehension. Security forces formed a protective cordon around the building, struggling to maintain order as the crowd swelled. In orbit above Arcturus IV, Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge of the human flagship, his weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. Beside him, Commander Lyra Vex studied the latest reports from the planet's surface. "The hybrids are stable," Vex reported, her voice tinged with relief. "Dr. Zan believes they'll make a full recovery." Thorne nodded, his eyes fixed on the looming form of the Zarkath flagship. "Good. We'll need them for what comes next." He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the Zarkath command vessel." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the insectoid features of Zartoth, the Zarkath captain. His mandibles clicked nervously as he addressed the human admiral. "Admiral Thorne," Zartoth began, his translator converting the clicks and chirps into smooth, accented English. "My crew and I, we are still coming to terms with our newfound freedom, the silence in our minds. It is both liberating and terrifying." Thorne's expression softened slightly. "We understand this is a difficult transition, Captain. That's why we're here to offer our help and to begin discussions on how we can move forward peacefully." As the diplomatic dance began in orbit, the surface of Arcturus IV buzzed with activity. In the capital city, human and Arcturian construction crews worked side by side, clearing debris and beginning the process of rebuilding. The destruction wrought by the Zarkath invasion was extensive, but the spirit of cooperation that had emerged in its wake offered a glimmer of hope for the future. Near the outskirts of the city, a joint team of human and Arcturian scientists had cordoned off the ancient ruins that housed the defense system. Dr. Ilara Vosh, a leading expert in xenoarchaeology, carefully examined the control interface that Craig and Hope had used to connect with the harmonizer. The level of integration between biological and technological systems is astounding, she murmured, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns etched into the alien metal. If we can understand this technology, it could revolutionize our approach to interspecies communication and cooperation. Back in the medical facility, Craig's eyelids fluttered open. He blinked, adjusting to the soft, ambient light of the recovery room. As his vision cleared, he became aware of a presence beside him. Hope lay on an adjacent bed, her chest rising and falling with steady breaths. Craig reached out, his fingers brushing against Hope's hand. At his touch, her eyes opened, meeting his gaze with a mixture of relief and wonder. "We made it," Craig whispered, his voice hoarse from disuse. Hope nodded, a small smile playing across her lips. "We did more than that," she replied, her voice carrying a new resonance that seemed to vibrate in Craig's very bones. "We've changed." As they took stock of their transformed bodies, Craig and Hope began to realize the extent of their new abilities. Craig found he could manipulate nearby Arcturian medical equipment with mere thoughts, the technology responding to his mental commands as if it were an extension of his own body. Hope, meanwhile, felt a growing awareness of the emotions swirling around them. She could sense the mixture of curiosity and concern from the medical staff, the growing excitement of the crowd outside, and most intensely, the deep connection between herself and Craig. Dr. Zan approached their beds, her face a mask of professional calm, belied by the excitement in her eyes. "How are you feeling?" she asked, running a series of scans with a handheld device. "Different," Craig replied, flexing his fingers and watching the play of light across his iridescent skin. "But good. Strong." Hope nodded in agreement. "It's as if we've finally become who we were always meant to be." Dr. Zan smiled, but before she could respond, the door to the recovery room slid open. Admiral Thorne entered, followed closely by Commander Vex. Their expressions were a mixture of relief and urgency. "Craig, Hope," Thorne began, his voice gruff but not unkind, "I'm glad to see you're awake. We have a lot to discuss." As the Admiral began to brief them on the current situation, the tentative peace with the Zarkath, the challenges of rebuilding, and the growing tensions among all three species, Craig and Hope exchanged a glance. They could sense the weight of responsibility settling on their shoulders, even as they marveled at their new abilities and the depth of their connection. The future stretched before them, filled with both promise and peril. As Thorne outlined his proposal for their role as ambassadors, Craig and Hope listened intently, knowing that their decisions in the coming days would shape the course of interstellar relations for generations to come. As Admiral Thorne finished his briefing, Craig and Hope exchanged a determined glance, their newfound connection allowing them to communicate volumes without words. "We're ready," Craig said, his voice carrying a new resonance that seemed to vibrate through the room. Hope nodded, her eyes shimmering with a mix of anticipation and purpose. "When do we start?" Admiral Thorne's lips quirked into a rare smile. "Immediately. The fate of 3 species rests on your shoulders." In the days that followed, Craig and Hope underwent intensive preparation for their roles as ambassadors. They worked tirelessly with experts in diplomacy, xenobiology, and interstellar relations, honing their skills and expanding their knowledge of the complex political landscape they were about to navigate. As the day of their first public address approached, tension mounted across the allied worlds. The tri-species alliance hung in a delicate balance, with centuries of mistrust and recent conflict threatening to unravel the fragile peace. Craig stood before a mirror in their shared quarters, adjusting the specially designed suit that accommodated his new physiology. His skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. "Are you ready?" Hope asked, approaching from behind. Her newly robust form moved with a grace that blended Arcturian fluidity with human strength. Craig turned, taking in the sight of his partner. Her appearance, like his own, was a harmonious blend of both species, a living symbol of what they hoped to achieve on a galactic scale. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied, reaching out to take her hand. Together they made their way to the Grand Hall where representatives from Earth, Arcturus IV, and the Zarkath homeworld had gathered. The air thrummed with tension and anticipation as they approached the stage. As Craig and Hope stepped into view, a hush fell over the diverse crowd. Humans craned their necks for a better view. Arcturians' bioluminescent patterns flickered with curiosity, and Zarkath antennae twitched in anticipation. Craig squeezed Hope's hand, drawing strength from their connection. He could feel the weight of countless eyes upon them, the hopes and fears of three species hanging in the balance. Hope stepped forward, her voice clear and strong as she began their carefully crafted address. "Citizens of Earth, Arcturus IV, and the Zarkath Confederation, we stand before you today not as separate entities, but as living proof of what we can achieve together." As she spoke, Craig felt a surge of energy course through him. Their unique abilities, heightened by their transformation, allowed them to project a sense of unity and understanding that transcended language barriers. The atmosphere in the hall began to shift, tension giving way to a growing sense of possibility. Craig took over, his words resonating with conviction. "Our journey has shown us the strength that lies in our differences, and the incredible potential we unlock when we come together. Today, we invite you to join us in building a future where cooperation replaces conflict, where understanding triumphs over fear." As their speech continued, Craig and Hope shared their experiences, painting a vivid picture of the challenges they had faced and overcome together. They spoke of the ancient Arcturian technology that had brought them together, the threat of the collective that they had vanquished, and the newfound freedom of the Zarkath people. Their words, infused with the empathy and insight granted by their hybrid nature, struck a chord with the assembled crowd. Humans nodded in understanding, Arcturians pulsed with approval, and even the typically stoic Zarkath seemed moved by the vision of unity presented before them. As they concluded their address, a moment of silence hung in the air. Then, like a wave breaking upon the shore, applause erupted from all corners of the hall. The sound of human hands clapping mingled with the harmonic resonances of Arcturian approval and the rhythmic clicking of Zarkath mandibles. Craig and Hope stood hand in hand, their forms glowing softly with shared bioluminescence, a living embodiment of the unity they sought to create. As the applause washed over them, they knew that this was only the beginning of their journey. In the days that followed, Craig and Hope embarked on a whirlwind tour of key locations across the Allied worlds. Their first stop was Earth, where they oversaw the establishment of the first Arcturian and Zarkath embassies. The gleaming structures rose in the heart of New York City, their alien architecture a striking contrast to the surrounding human buildings. Craig and Hope worked tirelessly, mediating discussions between human officials and their alien counterparts, smoothing over cultural misunderstandings, and fostering an atmosphere of cooperation. During a tense negotiation over resource sharing, Craig's ability to interface with both human and Arcturian technology proved invaluable. He seamlessly translated complex data streams, allowing all parties to visualize the benefits of collaboration in real time. Hope's enhanced empathic abilities came to the forefront during a delicate cultural exchange. She sensed the underlying anxiety of a group of human schoolchildren meeting Zarkath representatives for the first time. With gentle guidance, she helped bridge the gap, encouraging curiosity and understanding on both sides. Their efforts bore fruit as groundbreaking advancements began to emerge from the cooperation between the three species. Human medical techniques combined with Arcturian bioengineering led to revolutionary treatments for once incurable diseases. Zarkath hive mind principles, adapted for use without the oppressive collective, enhanced Earth's communication networks. From Earth, Craig and Hope traveled to Arcturus IV. The planet that had once been the site of conflict now bustled with activity as it transformed into a hub of interspecies cooperation. The ancient ruins where their adventure had begun were now the centerpiece of an interspecies cultural and scientific center. Craig and Hope walked hand in hand through the familiar pathways, marveling at how much had changed. Where once there had been silent, enigmatic structures, now there were laboratories and classrooms filled with researchers and students from all three species. The air hummed with the excitement of discovery as teams worked to unlock the secrets of Arcturian technology and explore the potential of hybridization. During their visit, Craig and Hope participated in a breakthrough experiment combining Arcturian bioluminescence with Zarkath hive mind principles and human neural interface technology. The result was a new form of communication that allowed for the instantaneous sharing of complex ideas and emotions across species boundaries. As they demonstrated the technology to an assembled group of dignitaries, Craig felt a surge of pride. This was the future they had dreamed of, one where the strengths of each species complemented the others, where barriers fell away in the face of shared discovery and understanding. Their final destination was the Zarkath homeworld, a place that had once been shrouded in mystery and fear. As their ship descended through the atmosphere, Craig and Hope looked out upon a landscape in transformation. The imposing hive structures that had once housed the collective were being repurposed, their stark lines softened by the addition of gardens and communal spaces. Zarkath moved about with a newfound sense of purpose, their movements more individualistic than the regimented patterns of the past. Craig and Hope's arrival was met with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Many Zarkath were still struggling to adjust to life without the constant presence of the collective in their minds. The silence, while liberating, was also disorienting for a species that had known nothing else for generations. In a series of public forums, Craig and Hope shared their experiences of individuality and free will, helping the Zarkath envision a future where they could maintain their sense of community while embracing personal autonomy. Hope's empathic abilities proved crucial in these discussions. She could sense the underlying fear and uncertainty in the Zarkath, allowing her to address their concerns with compassion and understanding. Craig, meanwhile, worked closely with Zarkath scientists to adapt human and Arcturian technologies for use in their society. Together, they developed new systems that allowed for voluntary information sharing and collective decision-making without the oppressive control of the collective AI. As weeks turned into months, the success of Craig and Hope's efforts became increasingly evident. Trade routes between the three worlds flourished, cultural exchanges became commonplace, and joint scientific ventures yielded remarkable breakthroughs. Yet, as they stood on the balcony of their temporary quarters on the Zarkath homeworld, Craig and Hope felt the weight of their responsibilities more keenly than ever. The constant travel and pressure of their roles had left little time for them to simply be together, to explore the depths of their own transformed relationship. Craig turned to Hope, his skin shimmering with patterns that reflected his inner turmoil. "We've accomplished so much," he said softly, "but I feel like we're losing something important in the process." Hope nodded, her enhanced perception allowing her to sense the complex emotions behind his words. "Our connection," she replied, reaching out to take his hand. "We've been so focused on bringing others together that we've neglected our own bond." As they stood there looking out over the alien landscape that was slowly becoming familiar, they made a decision. It was time to take a step back, to reconnect with each other and with the journey that had brought them to this point. With a shared look of understanding, they began to plan their next move. It was time to return to where it all began, to the tour site on Arcturus IV, where their lives had changed forever. There, they hoped to find not only a moment of respite, but also a renewed sense of purpose for the challenges that lay ahead. As they made arrangements for their departure, Craig and Hope knew that their greatest adventure, building a unified future for three once separate species, was nowhere near the end. But they also understood that to truly lead the way forward, they needed to nurture the very thing that made them unique, the love and connection they shared, a bond that transcended species and held the power to reshape the galaxy.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.